I've noticed even $100 million companies where I've peeked behind the curtains, I've gotten to see what they're doing, right? I thought they had it all perfect, and no one has it perfect. And so stop looking for, like, if you look for mistakes, you will find them. So you have to stop looking and digging too deep into things that you don't need to dig too deep into, because they're always going to just keep bringing you down. Just focus on the KPIs.
Welcome to the Deep Specialization Podcast, the show where we blend focus, strategy, and client intimacy in order to scale and simplify our businesses and our lives. I'm your host, Quinn. Let's jump into the show. My guest today is Arielle Cohen. She is the CMO of Business 411 and the co-founder and business partner at Marketing 411. Arielle has built a multi-7-figure agency, and we're going to hear all about how she scaled it. I can't wait to get into it with her. Welcome, Arielle.
Thank you, Corey. It's great to be here, and I'm excited to be an open book and share everything I've learned with everyone who's listening in.
Let's go. To start things off, could you just share with us a little bit about Business 411 and Marketing 411? What are those businesses? How do they relate to each other and whatnot?
Yeah, so the 411 brand overall caters to the roofing and construction industry. We have a really strong presence in that industry, and we've divided our companies into a couple different ways. So we have Business 411, which is more of the education brand, where we actually create SOPs, processes. First, we have the first ever white label roofing training manuals that thousands of roofers use every day to grow their business and train their teams. So that's on the Business 411 side. And then Marketing 411 is exactly what it sounds like. It's a full service agency catering to the roofing and construction space.
Which one came first?
So Business 411 came first. It was started before I was even involved by my business partner, Liz. So she was really the visionary and the brains behind Business 411. And then naturally it grew into its path. And then her and I joined forces and created Marketing 411.
Got it. And so at what point in the life cycle of Business 411 did you come around?
So I think the company Business 411 was maybe within its first year or about a year old.
Okay.
And then what was happening was they were getting a lot of demand for marketing. And so there was a need for marketing education, marketing services. And so, when you have people knocking at your door enough times, you start to pay attention like, hey, we need to offer this. And so that's kind of where I came in, and it made sense because I already had ran agencies before. It was not like my first rodeo. So it was kind of the perfect fit. There was already a great audience. We were already niched down. And so I came in and applied what I knew on marketing and running agencies to form Marketing 411.
So tell us a little bit more about your background. What were you doing before you came on to Business 411, started Marketing 411?
Yeah, so I've definitely been through my fair share of businesses before I found something that works. I was in the music industry when I was a little younger. I had created a music app, an actual app, a technology that was for collaborations within the music industry. So I had a run in the tech scene for a while, in the music scene. And from there, I really started to become invested into learning about marketing, because I knew that if I understand marketing, it doesn't matter what business, what industry, that I can make it successful. I knew that marketing and sales was the one key factor in making anything you do successful. And so I started to really dive into that world. And I had, a lot of people don't know this. I started off years and years ago, before I was going to college at the time, as an intern in a marketing agency. And I ended up working my way from intern to becoming a part owner of that agency. Okay,
Oh
so I
my
started as
goodness.
an intern.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when I ended up leaving that agency, I started my own thing. I had another agency. I was doing great. I was enjoying it, but it was not niched down. The agency was not niched down. And then but I did have that agency. And then that's when I happened to meet my now business partner, Liz. And I kind of brought everything I was doing over into this joint venture with her, because it made sense. The timing was right. And there was so much potential there. And I knew that if I applied my knowledge to this, we could really take off.
Okay. Couple quick questions on that. So when you were in college interning, made your way into becoming part owner or partner in that, what type of agency was that?
It was just a generalist agency as well. So I've had two
Okay. And doing
generalist
digital marketing or is it design or yeah, okay.
It was a full digital marketing agency.
Okay. And you guys targeted anyone, generalist agency. Talk more about what that looked like, that agency.
It is rough being a generalist agency. I'm going to be honest. We did have a department where we really had to focus in on dentists, and we had a certain program catered
Interesting.
to the dental industry. But we would take anyone and everyone that walked in. Like if you had a budget and you could afford marketing, I would take you on. So that would mean like beauty brands, food companies, a water company, doctors' offices, gyms, like
Roofers.
everything, roofers,
Yeah.
plumbers, home and kitchen remodeling. And that was
Yep.
really rough. I still didn't know about like niching down at that time. I don't think it was
Yeah.
as popular either. Like people weren't expressing it. And so I was
Yeah.
working the hard way because what happened was even though I understood marketing, I didn't know the cost per leads in those industries. It was different each time. And so I was having trouble scaling because there was turnover because I just couldn't understand fast enough the industries that I was catering to.
Yep. You were trapped in what I call the generalist trap, right? It was very common in the world we operate in. And so you left that at a certain point, you started your own agency. Tell us about your own agency before you merged and created Marketing 411.
Yeah. So when you're first starting your agency and you don't have the right training or mentors to tell you, hey, like start off in a niche, you also do what you did before. You start off generalist.
Sure.
So at that point, that was my full-time job was being an agency. And so I would again take on anyone that could pay, I would take on. And I had a really great book of business, but there wasn't like a consistent formula, right? Everyone needed something a little different. I didn't have my products like I didn't have things productized in a way that I could actually scale it and have processes behind it. And we actually
Yeah.
did a lot of media. So I did a lot of video production at the time, which was really fun. I got to get out in front with brands and actually like film videos and do things to enhance their media presence as well. So that was my own agency that I had that was generalist.
So why not just continue doing that when you met the owner of Business 411? Like why not just, continue versus merge in?
I could have, but when you see something really great, you have to recognize it. And she's great at what she does. I mean, from the SOPs and things she's created in the roofing industry, if anyone knows my business partner, Liz, she is really, really fantastic at that. So when you see something special and there's something there, you have to recognize opportunity and recognize there's something you could do. And so it would have been silly for me to turn that away. Funny enough, I probably work harder now than I did back when I had the other agency, but that's because we're trying to build something really big. And so we had a choice. Like
Yeah,
I was building something, in my opinion, it was good, it was stable. I had a great income and great balance. But, building a small business is hard, but building a big business is hard too. So it's like choose your path. And I
sure.
knew I wanted to go bigger.
Yeah. Different problems you're solving. What about Liz? What about the business told you that it was something special? Help us understand what that was.
Yeah. Well, for one, there was already a great audience and need and demand. So that's number one, right? Anyone would love to walk
Yeah.
into a situation where it's like, for us, a lot of people are like, oh, well, leads are a problem for us, right? That's what a lot of business owners say. For me, I never had that issue. Like my problem was I couldn't get to the leads fast enough because there were so many of them.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
just made sense. I mean, that stood out to me. There was already demand in a market there and the potential to really hone in on something that could help people and help us grow to meet our goals.
Yeah. So you came in to Business 411 and your primary focus was to launch Marketing 411. Is that effectively what it was to capture the demand that was being created by the Business 411 clients who are doing the more of the business operation work? Is that right?
Definitely. Yes.
Okay. So what did you do? You got hired and then what did you do?
Yeah. So when we joined up and decided to go all in on this business venture, I did what
Yeah.
I know how to do, and that's build marketing agencies. I had done it twice before. So I kind of
Yeah.
I knew where I needed to start and where I needed to go from there. And that was about 4 years ago now.
Okay. So what was some of the first things you did to build the agency?
Yeah. So, okay. The first thing I did was obviously market research. I need to know what I'm getting into. Okay. And then I need to understand what marketing could I offer that is a good fit for this industry. Because not everything works for every industry and they work in different ways. So you have to understand what is it that people actually need. And so from there, I created like our core offering, you could call it, and immediately obviously went into sales mode because in my opinion, when you're starting, unless you have the luxury of not being in a rush to make money, you need money to fuel the business if you want to keep going. That's like one of the first points you need to get to is getting paying clients. So that's immediately what we did. We started selling and then putting together the product on the back end and making it better and better with each client and looking to like drive some testimonials, see what's happening, build up that data. But getting customers and getting people on board quickly was the most important part.
And so when you did the market research, what did you find out about roofers? What kind of marketing do they need?
Oh, well, that it's different now than it was back then, right? So 4 years ago, we took a Google first approach. We still do a lot of Google. However, the price has increased significantly from then to now. They also didn't have programs like local service ads 4 years ago. That wasn't even a thing. So there's been a lot of changes, but we went all in on Google first because we knew people were searching actively for roofing. Homeowners were searching actively for roofers, and they had high intent and they had a problem.
And what's it today? I'm curious, how has that changed?
Today, it's not a one size fits all. So with marketing, what works for one company will not work for another. I don't care how great you are at marketing, it's not like you're never 100%. Like even if you have a great
Yeah,
strategy, I know there's still variations depending on the city, the market, the budgets, like there's so many variables. So right now we have a couple different programs, but we stopped doing just Google and limiting ourselves. And now we're full service where we offer Facebook ads and other forms of advertising because we know that if Google doesn't work in that market, we can shift gears and actually focus on something like Facebook, which will work in their market.
yeah, that makes total sense. And so with this need to generate sales really quickly, was it that you went into the business 411 clientele, the ones who've been raising their hands and saying, "Hey, we're looking for marketing too. Like, what should we do?" Is that where you primarily started, or how did you begin to start selling the agency services?
Yeah, so that was the low hanging fruit, right? There was already
Yeah,
demand there. I was walking into demand. So it was really just like getting those people who were asking for this already, into this program, into our new
sure.
program.
Yeah. Is that still the case today? Is that the primary driver for the agency business, or are you also selling to folks who are not clients of Business 411?
Yeah. So that was our strategy for the last few years. As of this year, 2025, we've really decided to branch marketing 411 off into creating its own brand. So as of recently, we are branding marketing 411 as a standalone, as well as, with business 411, but we really wanted to have its own identity and not just be fully reliant on the other side of the brand and vice versa. So we're really starting to build that out. However, we still do have obviously the companies we're the same. We're in the same office, like we're in, the same ecosystem. So there's still the need there for those business 401 clients where we will, obviously get them into the marketing. But before it was just back end. Like no one even knew we offered marketing. We didn't even tell people for the first few years. People would come to us naturally and then be like, okay, let's see if we could help you.
Sure. So that's super interesting. What was happening in the business last year or so that caused you to realize that, hey, we should start to market this as a separate standalone entity?
Yeah. So you want to never be reliant on one source. And that's what I tell my roofers as well, because if something happens to that one source, you lose your entire pipeline or you lose what your potential is. So you want to kind of diversify and build. We know how impacting building a brand is because we build roofing brands all the time. We teach
Yeah,
building roofing brands. So we want to like practice what we preach. And so we knew there was going to be a point where we wanted marketing for one to stand alone, have its own, its brand identity as a marketing agency first and foremost. That is a, obviously partnership with Business 411, but still has its own standalone. It just made sense. And plus, we're not limited to just roofers. If we wanted to start building out into other contracting areas, we can go ahead and do that by our go-to-market strategies.
I love the concept and the practice of building a brand. How are you doing that for both marketing 411 as well as your roofing clients?
Yeah, so I mean, with the roofing clients and with us, it's a little bit different, right? We're in different industries. When it comes to us, the biggest thing is going to be the content and education. We're really big on providing value first because when it comes to marketing, there's a bad stigma. I'm sure any agency owner that's ever taken a sales call in their life can relate that they've heard something like, "Oh, I worked with an agency, had a terrible experience," right? These are the things, the objections we're having to overcome. And so if I provide value first and focus on the intention of like providing education and just, content that resonates, you're going to have more trust. And when you have trust, it becomes easier to overcome the objection of your previous experiences. So from the
Yeah.
marketing side, I think that content and that value and those resources are really important, and showing we're more than just that. We're not
Yeah.
just going to like be silent. We're really here as a partner, and it's a two-way street, and setting those expectations. But then from the roofer side, totally different strategy. I mean, we're talking every roofer, majority of roofers, especially the ones that don't work with us, they have like the generic roofing logo, right? And their initials is the company name, like just different things that we
Yeah.
see that are not going to help them stand out because everybody has a roof line in their logo. So we
Right.
come together to create a brand that is actually going to stand out in their market. So that's one really important thing. And then we even add, like, we brought a lot of mascots into the roofing industry. I think we've created like hundreds of mascots that really,
Interesting.
yeah. So the mascots, that was a big part of our earlier days too. Like we would create mascots for these roofing companies that would really make them stand out and have a playful twist to their brand and
Yeah.
just enhance what they're doing to be more memorable.
Yeah.
Because when you have a better brand, your marketing, your cost per leads are going to get cheaper. You're going to get more
Yeah.
referrals. Like, it builds everything.
Yeah. So I've been in the agency space, similar to you for some time now, and branding has been, in my experience, branding has been a hard thing to sell into SMBs, local service businesses in general, not always. The more savvy ones get it, but certainly the ones that are on the smaller side, their budgets are more precious. They need it to go directly to lead gen because they need to eat what they kill and that whole thing. And so selling in a branding related product, which is overall helping to build brand recognition and to build awareness and recognition in the market, all those great things, which are not directly tied to the bottom of the funnel lead gen. It's hard to do. Do you include that as part of your overall product, or is that an add-on for a separate fee? The brand building, like how do you approach that from a
Yeah, we
positioning
have a different
perspective?
department for branding, so it will be
Yeah,
a separate program that we
yeah,
have that focuses on branding, because that's a different team that fulfills that. That's our design team
yeah,
versus like our
yeah,
actual like advertising specialist team that focuses more on those advertising strategies. So they are separately built. And it's funny how things change. At one point, branding was like our forefront actually. A lot of people came to us and knew us for branding, and now we actually almost have like branding a little bit more on the back end and marketing more of like the advertising on the front end. So it's just funny how
yeah.
things change with the agency, with time, with what's happening in the industry. But I think what happens with roofing companies and in general is they get FOMO. They see this other really great brand and they know, well, shoot, I can keep playing it small and having this generic logo, or I need to do something to stand out. And usually
Right,
they trend to want to not be left behind, and
right.
they see this brand's dominating in their market, so they have to keep up.
Yeah. The marketplace creates the demand for the branding services. That's awesome. You mentioned education is a big part of what you do to help build awareness and effectively build trust with the Marketing 411 brand. What type of things do you do to drive to build sort of do education content? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, so definitely we're starting to do more and more videos. Going to be building up our YouTube channel like we built up our other channel, which is just like free content to help roofing companies and contractors. We're doing like email, we're starting to do like email series, but the emails aren't asking. We're not trying to sell them anything. We're literally just providing value. I also host a weekly class, marketing mentorship class, where I train on different marketing techniques and strategies where roofers join every single week. And
Is
yeah,
that a free class for the marketplace or is that something for just your clients or
yeah, so I offer it to our clients and anyone on their teams.
okay, great. It's great
Yep.
value add.
Yep. Just something, because I think one of the biggest things with clients is they're only going to leave you for two reasons: communications and results. It's one of those two reasons every single time if you tie it back. Right. And so a lot of times there's the communication piece is where the missing part is. And so if I'm teaching them every week, I help bridge any communication gaps because I'm educating them on what they're looking at. Sometimes
Right.
companies don't make the right decisions on marketing because they don't know what they're looking at. They think something's wrong when indeed it's not. It just wasn't explained to them. And so that marketing class that I do weekly helps kind of combat that so everyone's on the same page, because you can only feel good about something if you know.
Do you have a sales team today or are you still running all the sales?
So it's funny, we kind of chatted about that a little bit. We do have a sales team on the other side of the business, and we have one person on the marketing side, but we're actually restructuring our sales team right now to kind of fuel the
Yeah.
growth for 2025 and beyond.
Yeah. And I think that I imagine that's been due in part to the fact that you're now breaking out as a separate business unit that's going to be building its own pipeline versus depending exclusively or semi-exclusively on Business 411, right? So you have to build out the sales team. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a sales team, but we made the decision to brand when we were branching off, like, hey, let's let our current sales team sell what they're really good at and what they know. And let's build out a new team that focuses on the marketing side because what we didn't want is
Yeah.
people focusing on too many offers and it gets too confusing. So if we're going to really build out these companies side by side, then we need to treat them
Yeah.
that way and have separate teams. So that's actually one of the biggest things we're doing right now is building that out. So I will be hopping back into sales for the first time in a while, but just to help kind of build out how I want it ran so that we can hire and grow accordingly.
Sure. Are you excited about that? Do you like the sales, putting the sales hat on?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, I love hearing what people, are doing and kind of chatting, but it is, I think there's other areas that I can contribute more to. So it's going to be a very
Yeah.
temporary thing. But I've always been, when you're an agency owner, a lot of times you can kind of do it all, but that doesn't mean you should do it all.
Let's talk more about that. What are some areas where a founder should be getting out of the way sooner than later? Like what are some of the first things that an agency founder should focus on?
Everything. You should get everything out of the way. I mean, like, you should literally delegate everything because what happens is if you don't delegate, you build this terrible habit and it becomes harder and harder to delegate as you're further in. So if you do it from the very beginning, you're actually at an advantage because you're used to that way. And I
Correct.
think I heard someone say, like, some of the best business owners are the laziest. And I know that might
Right.
sound a little weird, but it's actually true when you think about it. Because, if you're over here micromanaging everything and controlling everything, and this person's being a real business owner and they're at the beach relaxing while the company runs, which lifestyle do you want? You have to decide.
Exactly. Exactly. So do you recommend, having been through this now, do you recommend that agency founders who, let's call it, let's call it, they want to be more lazy, or in other words, that they find ways to not get stuck in doing everything, is the best way to just hire a big team, or is there a better way to kind of help to build some of that scale in the agency?
And yeah, forget the word lazy. That's just a funny joke, but I call it the freedom finder method. The freedom finder method. That's what I actually call it because that's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to be lazy, you're trying to be free. And so 100%, I think that you need to build a team right away. And when you're building an organization, an agency, or any business, you don't necessarily have the funds to do that right away. And so one of the things I really, really love doing is building an outsourced team, meaning an
Okay.
overseas team. And whether you're just starting or even in scale mode, like even if you have a seven-figure agency, there's still value to building outsourced teams that have been very rewarding in many ways and have impacted our business and our profit margin.
Sure. Is there a specific function in the agency that they should start building out this team, this overseas team? For example, fulfillment, marketing, sales, project management. Like where should people start?
The thing they hate doing the most, they should get that off their plate. The thing it like, if you don't like doing sales, then you need to get someone to do sales. If you don't like actually doing the fulfillment and being stuck behind the computer doing the fulfillment, then that's what you need to outsource. That's what you need to start building a team around. Because
Yeah.
with the Freedom Finder method, this method that I've been creating, the whole concept is that listen, in any role, even if you own the business or in any job, you're going to have things that you don't like to do. It's going to happen. Even if you love what you do, there's going to be certain things. And so there's like this formula where, like, if you're not doing 80%, because listen, there's going to be that 20% that comes to your plate that you just have to deal with. It's the name of the game. But if you're not 80% of what you do on a day-to-day doing what you love, then your formula is off.
So let's say a founder who's listening to us right now says, okay, I know immediately sales, I don't like it. What should they do next? How do they go from that spot to having a team member who is crushing it in sales?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple ways they can do it. They obviously need to hire somebody. They need to hire someone, and that person's just going to depend. Sales is not a role I would go that cheap on because sales is going to drive revenue. So a good quality salesperson is going to fuel the business's growth. So I would go ahead and I would use online sources. I would use like Indeed, I would use Facebook, I would use Upwork, I would use LinkedIn, and I would find someone I could bring on for sales who can either A, help me even build out the process of the sales team and actually live do it and help me grow a sales team. That would probably be where I would start if I don't have any sales processes in place. You need someone to
Yeah.
help you do it. And that first hire, yes, you might need to make an investment in that person, but it's worth it.
You mentioned that. I love that. And by the way, I know that I believe you're also a fan of Dan Martell, and I've read his book, Buy Back Your Time. Yeah. So I keep thinking about the buyback ladder, right, where he talks about you start off in first get an assistant, and then you replace yourself with operations, and then marketing and sales, and then leadership. But I like your point around the fact that if it's something you don't like doing, it's a requirement to be successful. You don't like doing it, start there because then you could ultimately spend more time doing the things you do love. I think that's really smart.
Because you want to be happy while building. You don't want to be
Yeah.
stressed. Like, you don't want to be
Yeah.
stressed building your company and doing something you hate every single day. That's not why you started your own
Yeah.
company. And so I'm telling
Yeah.
you as someone who had to learn that the hard way, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to get rid of that. You have to have that freedom finder method, that 80% of doing what you love day in and day out.
What is your approach on hiring great virtual assistants, VAs?
Yes. So I love working with VAs. I've actually switched our model. We have our in house team, but we're more and more incorporating different VAs or outsourced team members onto our team for many different roles. I would say what's very important is one is the vetting process. The interview process, making sure expectations are clear. One thing I do not really sacrifice is like English level, like making sure I can understand them and they could understand me. If you're bilingual, great. Like if the person speaks Spanish, that's fine too, right? But just making sure there's that communication levels there because that's really important. So vetting the VAs to make sure they have the right experience of what I'm looking for is very important. So that would be the starting point. And then the training process, how you train them and what you set the expectations is going to set the tone for the rest of the role.
What type of training needs to be in place to really set up a VA for success?
So I like to do like a 30-day map, 30-day training, 30-day of what I expect, I should say. I don't train for 30 days typically, but I do have expectations, but by the end of these 30 days, we need to be at this point. And if we're not,
Yeah.
something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's like a 30-day roadmap I use where I make sure there's certain KPIs, reporting in place. Like I know what those expectations are. They're defined enough. And I even write down the schedule for them. Like I know sometimes people are like, oh, hey, check your emails, right? General statement. But I noticed if you say check your emails or check my emails, like my VA goes through my emails. If I just say, hey, VA, like check my emails, right? They're not going to do it the way I want them to do it. You have to be very specific. So I record a video. I make sure they have it like really laid out with them of like, here's how I want you to check the emails so that I know they're doing
Yeah.
it in the way that I expect them to. So there's a little bit
Yeah.
more guidance, I would say, with VAs because they are virtual. So you just give them the exact way. They're not mind, no one's a mind reader. So you need to give them the exact way you want it done.
Sure. And are there any roles, if you're using VAs in your business and you have a great training process, you're getting great results, in your experience, are there any roles that people should just not hire overseas for, that they should have locally in the building with you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It depends on the industry. If we're referring to agencies, I can't think of something necessarily besides being like the CEO themselves. I really can't think of anything that you can't outsource successfully.
Okay. So then, therefore, should agencies have a physical office?
Ooh, that is a great question. It really depends on your model. So, like here, we have a physical office because we decided we have 100-person classroom, a contractor's classroom where people fly from all over the country to learn from us for 3 days. I literally have people outside right now. We have about 50 companies outside of my office right now learning that my business partner is teaching. So for us, it made sense to have a physical office. So
Yep.
really it depends on what your strategy is. For us, it made sense, but I definitely see more and more people going the virtual route and not having
Yeah.
offices and saving that expense and doing like more so like team meetups, like everyone going to Mexico and like having a vacation together and making that like more about the synergy. And I'm seeing even huge companies that are not having physical offices because what happens is you limit yourself to the talent in that area as opposed to having worldwide talent.
Yep. Yeah. In other words, so to paraphrase what you shared, are you saying that you don't have to have a physical office to be successful as long as your business model doesn't require it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. But I agree. I'd rather spend the money that would otherwise go to rent to go fly everyone out to Cancun and, have margaritas on the beach.
Definitely. Yeah. Sounds like a good time. I'll be there.
So I know that you mentioned that Liz is amazing with SOPs and processes, and I imagine that that is true in the marketing 411 world as well. What is a good process for creating an SOP, a standard operating procedure? Like what are the basic steps to documenting those?
Yeah, I think it's understanding and having clarity on what you're even looking to accomplish. There's been times where I wrote
Yeah,
SOPs and I was like, wait, what was I even trying to accomplish here? Like, let's go back. So, like, having complete clarity when you go into it is going to help because sometimes
yeah,
you want to keep SOPs to solve what it is you're trying to solve, right? And streamline what you're trying to streamline and not be all over the place. I prefer a more like deep dive SOP than like a broad one. So I
yeah,
think having clarity on what you're trying to do and then documenting it out and then using like chat GPT to make it even better. Obviously, like I'll do the
yeah,
initial layout and then I'll use AI to help me make that layout better. And then what you have to do is actually apply it in real life to make sure it's practical. And then you have to record a video of you
yeah.
showing how it works step by step. So I have three things. I have it written out. I then have screenshots of the step by step. I do a live training, and then that live training is recorded and also in the SOP. So there's like no way you could misunderstand or miss a step.
What's a way to fix a situation where, let's say, an agency has a library of SOPs? It's all documented, it's all beautiful, but no one uses them.
So here's what you should do. We actually ran into that issue because we had all these great SOPs, but it's like,
Very
which ones are
common.
the most essentials? And so what I did
Yes.
was I actually took from a library of hundreds of SOPs, I started saying with each department, what are the top 10? Like if you
Yeah.
had only these 10 and nothing else, you could successfully do your job. And
Yeah.
I created like a master document, like a master folder that
Yeah.
had those 10 SOPs only. So it's not cluttered by all the other different SOPs. It's
Right.
more like, hey, here's the top 10 things. And I'll give you an example in the sales process, right? If you're hiring a new salesperson, my top 10, for example, is things like my customer profile, our programs, appointment setting formula, our discovery call script, our CRM and follow up management. Like those are, and then I think our 30-day onboarding. Like those are the nine or however many. Like those are the few that I have in there. That if you have those, you will be able to perform your job successfully.
Yeah. And how do you track and make sure your employees are actually following the SOPs? Like, how do you know?
Yeah, so we use stoplight reports where every week we have certain KPIs that are being reported and we use the red, yellow, green, like the
Sure.
stoplight approach there. So it's very every week we all get together as a team and we go through these numbers in the departments.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you've been at this business venture for 4 years. And I imagine the person you are today is different than the person you were 4 years ago when you started. What are some of the big sort of 10x jumps in you as a leader, as a manager, as an owner that really had an impact on the business?
Oh my, that is such a great question. Definitely always learning and always growing. But I would
Yeah.
say you are your biggest roadblock. So, like, I was my biggest roadblock. Like, anywhere we didn't reach, I take full responsibility. I don't blame my team most of the time. I don't
Yeah.
blame my partners. I blame myself. And so, like, just overcoming my own mental hurdles and things that were holding me back from growing
Yeah.
has been one of the
Yeah.
biggest growth accelerators. I think the other thing is delegation, understanding how to, and I'm still constantly getting better of how to empower our team rather than just doing it for them or trying to have control all the time, but letting go of that control and empowering our team to be leaders, innovators. That was another big one that I think helped us get to where we are now, is building
Right.
that and continuing to build that.
What's one maybe example of something that you struggled to delegate that you should have delegated a while ago?
Oh my gosh, too many things. Too many things. That's why I can speak to it. So
Yeah.
let's see, where do I start? Okay, presentations. I still was making my own presentations and I didn't need to be doing that. First of all, AI could do that or a VA can do it. So that
Yeah.
was one thing I could delegate. Also, having to be involved with every single client. I thought if there was a client issue or something that I needed to be involved to like save the day and have that hero complex of like, oh, I'm the only one who could save it. And now I
Yeah.
have this like kind of chain where everybody knows how they can deal with it. It doesn't have to come to me if it's a problem. Because problems, those types of things are draining, and we have teams that can deal with those, especially with the right processes, should know how to deal with
Sure.
them and be able to get them, and ever since I've stepped away from that, I've been happier, and my team's been doing a great job doing what they do best. They're closest with the client.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing as a business, and this is at any size, like I've noticed even $100 million companies where I've peeked behind the curtains, I've gotten to see what they're doing, right? I thought they had it all perfect, and no one has it perfect. And so stop looking for, like, if you look for mistakes, you will find them. So you have to stop like looking and digging too deep into things that you don't need to dig too deep into, because they're always going to just keep bringing you down. Just focus on the KPIs.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that I keep coming back to this, the thought, which is that being a business owner and growing a business is on a parallel path, a personal growth journey to understand like where am I getting in my own way, right? And being able to be honest with ourselves about what are those things and then finding better ways to doing those things. So I don't know if you feel the same way.
I 100% feel the same way. I mean, it's really whatever you imagine you can do if you just get out of your own way and just go for it. And so yeah, and trust other people to help you along the way. You can't hoard everything. You're not Superman, Superwoman. You can't do it yourself.
Yeah.
Rely on others.
There's a great book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. It's about these different laws about growing, about leading and growing businesses. And I think one of the first laws is the law of the lid, which is that the company can only grow as fast as the limitations, the let's call them limiting beliefs of the leader. So I'm always reminded of that. You mentioned that you're going to be potentially going out to other home service businesses, expanding the scope outside of roofers, right? Is there in your mind, having done this vertical strategy for a bit now, and also having been a generalist before, are there any downsides to taking a vertical market approach in your mind?
Into going all in on one vertical,
Correct. Or maybe a couple over time, but having that specialization, that deep specialization in one.
it will only benefit you. I mean, like, talk about things that I could have gotten to where I wanted to get faster, right? Is by
Yeah.
focusing in on one industry and
Yeah.
understanding there is so much there. You can make so much, you can hit all your goals just by focusing on one industry and
Yeah.
really make an impact. So, yeah, there is a huge difference. And I would recommend to anybody who has an agency to dial in and dial down, because you'll start to really, really build a mark in
Yeah.
the industry that you're servicing.
How are you approaching finding the next industry or vertical market to target outside of roofers?
So a couple things. The demand, once again, like our customers tell us what they want and what they need. And so when you're a roofing company or a contractor, there's other kind of sub services that people do within that business. Like they don't just do roofing. And so it's very natural for us to say, okay, well, you also do gutters or siding or construction, and like, so there's these other industries that are already kind of very closely tied to our core industry that we can start expanding out to, and the demands there, people are asking for it. So a lot of times when we're running ads for roofing companies, we're already doing ads for gutters, for siding, for these other things that they offer. So it's
Yep.
very
Right.
natural to expand out.
Yep. That reminds me back at Scorpion when we started in home services, it was plumbers, but then a lot of larger plumbers also do HVAC and they also do electricians as well. And so we realized like, hey, there's a lot of these kind of very related or shoulder niches that were meaningful to our clients. And so therefore, we naturally did probably something very similar to what you are in the middle of, which is finding those areas, those pockets of opportunity that's just kind of a natural conversation with your existing leads. It's really cool.
Definitely. Yep. Sounds the same.
Yeah. So I just have two more questions for you, Ariel. First one is, what would be your, let's call it, parting advice for an agency founder who is maybe frustrated because they're struggling to do too many different things, not making progress, maybe they're a generalist, and they're really looking to scale? What are some of the things that they should do immediately to start moving towards more of a scaled up business model?
Hire a virtual assistant for themselves and delegate as much as they can so they could focus on actual growth of the company and stop doing daily things that do not move the needle. That is the
Yeah.
biggest one I could think of that will allow you to get all those tasks that are so time consuming but not important out of your way. And even if you might not even realize you're doing it every single day.
Yeah.
Like how much time do you spend checking your email? 100%. You need to offload all of that, get that out of your way, have a helper in your corner so that you can focus on the thing that's actually going to drive your business forward, like
Yeah.
sales, like fulfillment, like, those important, like those partnerships, right? Those are the things that are going to get you to the next place.
Wonderful. Last question. What's your motivation?
Yeah. So my motivation, I can answer this in a couple different ways, but more now than ever, it's to impact others. At one point in my life, and I just actually got off the stage here and spoke about this, so it's funny you're asking it. But especially when I was younger, at one point in my life, I really cared about making money. That was important to me. I was really focused on the financial benefit of having a business. And then when I started to hit, we're in this multi-seven-figure mark, and we're obviously wanting to grow. That those metrics are important to us. But more and more, my life's become about how can I help others? How can I impact others? And so there becomes a point where those financial goals can only get you so far, where it's like you need something else that really fulfills you. And for me, it's just trying to figure out ways to continue to help others. And that's one of the things I love about using virtual assistants and outsourced teams, because, Corey, as you know, the worldwide, they don't have the opportunities that we have here in the US. And so through this company, not only have I been able to impact my team members or my clients, but actually my team. I mean, by hiring overseas, there's been people on my team, they bought the first car in their family history. They sent their brother or
Yes.
sister to college. They sent their kid to private school because there's not good schools in Brazil. One of my guys told me. So he sent them to a school where they could actually learn English and be safe and things like that. And that feels good. I've impacted their lives. And so that's one of the
Yeah.
also the benefits. And in exchange, they're extremely loyal and dedicated to building, to helping us hit our company goal. And so it's a win-win. And so I'm just looking at how I can continue to serve and impact others.
Fantastic. I'm thinking of my own assistant. She's in the Philippines. She lives in a small farm town, and she's a wonderful, well-educated, eager young mom. And she's just a wonderful, wonderful resource that I'm just so blessed to have her a part of our team. And then as well as, yeah, the work that we give her is very meaningful. So I can see that in my life as well. Ariel, thank you so much for coming on. That was awesome. You shared a ton of wisdom. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience did as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it. I am happy to help other agency owners for sure.
Yeah, where can people reach out to learn more about you and get in contact?
Yeah, so they can reach out on social, Facebook, Instagram. It's at Arielle CEO.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
Corey.
Thanks for tuning in to the Deep Specialization Podcast. Are you ready to find out if your agency is built to scale? Take my free 5-minute agency growth score assessment at agencygrowthscore.com. That's agencygrowthscore.com, and get tailored insights across your positioning, marketing, and sales systems. Also, be sure to subscribe for more episodes that help you specialize and scale your sales with dream clients.